All is turmoil in turbulent Spain, and the cost of political anarchy is death and destruction. This unhappy country, reft into two almost equal camps, illustrates all the tragedies of civil war under modern conditions. Innocent people lose their lives, property of law-abiding citizens is wrecked, and half the combatants fight half-heartedly for one cause or the other because they're forced to take sides. The outbreak started in Spanish Morocco, among men of the Foreign Legion, here seen on ceremonial parade under the walls of Tetuan. Commanded by prominent military officers, presumably sent from Spain because their loyalty was suspect by the socialist communist government, the troops rapidly took charge of Morocco and crossed over the straits to carry the conflict into Spain. Here, all soon became confusion, with no certainty which side particular troops were espousing. Scenes like this were typical in every city, but in one instance police would be searching fascists for arms, and in the next it would be communists whose movements were under suspicion. And against cities where a known hostile element was in charge, troops of one side or the other would march and direct an intimidating bombardment. Such is the fruit of anarchy, of a people divided against itself.
A name to conjure with, Mussolini. It draws 400,000 to Palermo harbor with a background of battleships to hear Il Duce on peace.
Una concezione superficiale e pittoresca di quel pittoresco che io detesto.
While these hours of destiny draw out, the citizen makes his preparations. Windows are darkened to render blackouts complete. Anderson shelters are stocked so that there may be nothing to think of at the last moment. The wise man carries buckets for water into his home as protection against the risk of incendiary bombs. First aid kit is assembled and gone over, and gas masks are tested once again to make sure they're in good order. If your gas mask has deteriorated, you can get a new one. At St. Pancras ARP office, they were busy fitting small kiddies with the masks for which they had been too young last year. And here's a picture which epitomizes the insanity of this appalling chapter of history, a child in a gas mask. However, not to finish on too grim a note, here's a typical conversation we overheard.
Good morning.
Morning.
Do you think there's going to be a war?
Not this week at any rate. It'll upset all the football pools.
They reassemble in the evening, and within the Führerhaus the camera is present to record for the waiting world and for posterity the scenes of deliberation. There is no large, long table with chairman and rules of procedure. These leaders of mankind stand around discussing the problems which affect the destiny of all humanity with the informality and directness reminiscent of a school study. So well are they known to you that I may be excused from identifying the principals in these historic pictures, but look at this shot in which you see the statesmen all together, Mussolini, Hitler, Daladier, and the camera pans over to Mr. Chamberlain on the right. It is 2 o'clock in the morning, and agreement has been reached. Hitler signs. Then the signature of the prime mover in the negotiations, the Prime Minister, goes on to the document, while Mussolini and Hitler remain in earnest conversation. The Duce takes the pen and dashes off his autograph across each of 4 copies. And finally, Monsieur Daladier adds his name and the endorsement of France. Agreement has been sealed. Peace is saved. All the nation wants to tell him, but when he comes back, his first thought is to thank others.
I want to thank the British people for what they have done. Next I want to say that the settlement of the Czechoslovakian problem, which has now been achieved, is, in my view, only the prelude to a larger settlement in which all Europe may find peace. This morning I had another talk with the German Chancellor, Herr Hitler. And here is the paper which bears his name upon it as well as mine. Some of you perhaps have already heard what it contains, but I would just like to read it to you. We, the German Führer and Chancellor, and the British Prime Minister have had a further meeting today and are agreed in recognizing that the question of Anglo-German relations is of the first importance for the two countries and for Europe. We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again. We are resolved that the method of consultation shall be the method adopted to deal with any other questions that may concern our two countries, and we are determined to continue our efforts to remove possible sources of difference and thus to contribute to assure the peace of Europe.
To the Prime Minister, the agreement of Munich is only a beginning. But the nation thinks it a sufficient achievement for the moment. All the way to Buckingham Palace, the crowds have lined the route, and around the Victoria Memorial, the press of humanity in the rain is reminiscent of Jubilee or coronation. As the King and Queen and Mr. and Mrs. Chamberlain come out on the balcony, the cheering rises to a climax. So let us close on this scene of enthusiasm. The Prime Minister, by his King's desire, acknowledging his popularity from the balcony of Buckingham Palace. Our words of admiration and thanks are exhausted for the man who averted another Armageddon.
Arbeitsmänner. Wenn ich euch so sehe, dann wird es mir schwer zu sprechen. Uns allen geht das Herz über, vor Freude über euch. Ihr wisst gar nicht, wie das deutsche Volk euch lieb gewonnen hat. Kleinen Ausschnitt ergibt und das uns die Herzen so übervoll werden lässt. Das ist die Fanfare eines neuen Deutschlands, das sie hier ankündigt. Der Spaten ist ein Symbol einer neuen Gemeinschaft geworden. Und so erneuern wir denn auch jedes Jahr wieder diesen alten Schwur der gegenseitigen Treue, der Kameradschaft, dieses alte gemeinsame Bekenntnis zu unserer herrlichen Bewegung und damit zu unserem ewigen deutschen Volk. Deutschland, Sieg, Heil! Heil!
And there is very little likelihood of a negative answer.
Vertrauen und ihr habt das Glück, Zeugen einer ebenso bewegten wie großen Zeit zu sein. Der Beste mit gespreizten Beinen auf dieser Erde, der gewandt ist, gesund ist an Leib und deshalb auch gesund an seiner Seele. Und so wächst neben euch Junges heran, das deutsche Mädchen. Vielleicht.
But Britain is prepared, ready to shoulder her responsibilities and face every peril which may be forthcoming. The personnel of the defense forces has increased rapidly in the face of danger. The anti-aircraft units, efficient and magnificently organized, inspire that utmost confidence which we know to exist in these isles. The efficiency with which these schemes of evacuation have been planned and executed is a consoling thought and a matter of congratulation to the organizers. The departure of the children in particular has been a triumph of orderly precision. From cities and towns, children in their thousands have left their parents behind and been drafted off to safety zones. And here, another consoling thought, most of the children themselves have gone off cheerfully enough. For them, fortunately, the whole procedure seems to hold no terrors and is even regarded as just another holiday. With food and clothing provided by their parents and each carrying a gas mask, they entrain for their excitingly unknown destinations. How long will they be away? How long before they again live beneath the same roof with their parents? How is it possible for them to understand that the routine of their daily lives has been shattered by one man hundreds of miles away in a country they have never seen? That it has been brought about by what Mr. Chamberlain has described as the senseless ambition of this one man? It is indeed a strange experience for these thousands of children, as well as a great responsibility for those who will be caring for them during these dark days. But we know that the women of Britain will respond to this cause as readily as the men who have taken up their duties in the defense of their country.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am very glad to take this opportunity of addressing the English-speaking public to the medium of one of the most marvelous discoveries of modern times. I will speak to you in a few clear words of the chief problem which interests the whole of mankind, namely, peace or war. As the Prime Minister of the Italian government and head of the Fascist movement, which has been ruling Italy these 9 years, and as a man, I wish to reject and repudiate all the futile chatter and information of those people who pretend to know that Italy wants to prepare for war. I fought in the war as a private soldier, among soldiers. I know what war means. With this double experience, how can anyone think that I should look without horror upon the eventuality of a war? For nowadays, should it even break out between two nations alone, would fatally become universal. I repeat what I said in my speech of October 27 last. Italy will never take the initiative in promoting war. On the contrary, it is entirely willing to welcome disarmament if others will disarm. Italy needs peace, a long, secure period of peace, to be necessary to consolidate the concrete results of the fascist government. Fascism wants to assure the Italian people, in cooperation with all other people, a future of prosperity and peace.
The fateful hour of 11 has struck, and Britain's final warning to Hitler having been ignored, a state of war once more exists between Great Britain and Germany. Arriving at Westminster to hear the ominous decision, statesmen set a good example, now universally followed, by carrying their gas masks. Following the declaration of war, been reformed. Mr. Anthony Eden is now Secretary for the Dominions with special access to the War Cabinet. Mr. Churchill, as in 1914, is First Lord of the Admiralty. Sorrowfully from the House comes the Premier, whose great efforts for peace have won the admiration of the civilized world. Only 25 minutes after war had been declared came the first air raid warning. For obvious reasons, we have cut out the sound of the sirens. This was an opportunity for the people of Britain to demonstrate their traditional calm in the face of danger. There was no sign of panic. Men and women in the streets made their way quickly to the nearest shelter and queued up in orderly processions at the entrances. Although the alarm proved to be a false one, it was of great benefit as a full-dress rehearsal and a swift reminder of what war now means to the civilian. On the whole, Britain takes the declaration of war quietly enough, but in places the cheerful readiness of the nation to face these new facts is made evident. Already, Cockney humour is adjusting its wit to the new conditions. On the other hand, grim evidence that the nation is in earnest can be seen in every street. Mattresses are installed in government offices where civil servants overwhelmed with war work may rest. Even your newsreel headquarters, now transformed, presents a warlike scene. Our cameramen, prepared for all eventualities, will be taking war pictures on every front. Meanwhile, here's the last picture of Herr Kort, the German chargé d'affaires, as he leaves the embassy and drives away en route for Berlin.